Hello and welcome to episode number 48, getting close to 50 in the Madaxeman Podcast series. We've got the full gang back this week, as usual, and we go in depth, unsurprisingly, it's been inevitable, into the very important subject of haberdashery and scissors. We also talk Aechemenids, we talk about Polish hats, there's Andy's quiz making a return, all the answers to your private-based questions from last time, the real tricky stuff about Monster Munch baps, there's a bit of painting, there's a bit of chat about gaming. And then for the first time, we've even got a special offer, a freebie from Martin at Vexillia. So there'll be a question for you to write in the answers to at the end of the quiz. So sit back, enjoy the podcast.
This means war. This means war.
Well, we're back yet again. I think this is episode 48, our second mini lockdown run. We've got the full set yet again here. I can see Aussie Simon, you're here with some red wine.
G'day.
G'day. We've got Peter the Badger with the backdrop of London. No, the waving thing isn't very good.
Hello.
The waving thing doesn't work. Right, okay.
No,
Tamsin is
just
still in
got a wet
2000
wave,
AD.
volume wave.
Tamsin's still in 2000 AD,
Yes, I am.
beaming in from the future. Andy is either drinking a urine sample or has got some scotch. What is it?
Hard to tell the difference, but I think it's meant to be Scotch.
You think he's meant to be scotch. Adam is still ready to,
Smells like
to
scotch.
do his
That's
Adam
a-
and
that's a
Ant
relief.
special with a pint. Is that bass? Is that your traditional
It
bass?
is indeed. Pint of bass, all good.
Lord, lockdown bass. And Dave, please say the word Heffersteiner to us, or
It's in the
surprise
fridge.
us.
I'm going to reach for it in a minute.
You're going to reach for it. And I'm
I bought this
now
in
on-
Kent, by the way. It's a thing called Scrimshanker IPA, Hop Demon Brewery. I don't know if that's any good, but if anyone knows anything about it.
So it's not a scotch then. It's
No, that isn't. I'm not drinking that now. I'm just.
all right. You're not drinking that now. No, I'm doing a Quantic Session IPA from the Wild Beer Company. Because I accidentally ordered another box of whatever it was from some mail order rubbish that I failed to cancel before it came through. So I've got to finish that off before I get back down to something more normal. But look, without further ado, let's dive quickly into the who's been painting what. And Dave, I can see you looking into your magic magnifying lens there that you've got in front of you. With your glasses as well. Does that mean like whatever you're painting is bigger than painting the side of a house or something?
No, it's just what's necessary for picking out 50mm.
Right. Okay. So what have you got? What have you been painting in the last week?
I'm being boring. I'm filling in the gaps, just filling up the lead pile. So I'm still painting Franks. And the Franks just go on. The army which gives and gives. I've still got 10 bases of heavy foot to paint, and I'm just doing the last 4 of the bowmen. So I mean, essentially, it'll be 2 armies worth. And what else are we doing? Oh, I painted a castle. Simon showed me the Alicante castle we got for free last year.
The Alicante Castle. What was
Sounds like a
was
plan.
that your lockdown adventure, or was that something
we
else?
went to Alicante last January.
I thought it was a chess tactic.
Yeah, this January. So it was
Alicante, January 2019.
no, it was 2020.
Was it? Oh, I've lost track. It was
Yeah,
2020.
it was
Right. Yeah, what am I talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, so it was the ominous start of the year where, as we were flying out to Alicante, some of our flights got delayed because there was a fire at the airport, and then there was some wind. On the way back, we had to divert to a different airport because because the Alicante airport was on fire and weakened during storms.
The airport was on fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
yeah.
And the other Dave thought he was going to not be able to fly out for another 2 weeks, but we managed to get him on our flight, didn't we?
Yep.
It was kind of a portent for this year, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it started
Well,
off bad and you just went down from there.
Well, everybody tried to leave you behind in Spain for a long time, but unfortunately it failed, and you're still here. That's
Yeah.
the portent. That's the way it is, clinging on. So when you're saying that you're finishing up the lead pile, are you painting through what's in the lead pile, or are you looking at gaps in the armies that you've got to paint up the obscure unit that you're actually never going to use? Is it lead driven or is it list driven?
It's lead driven.
So you've got far too much then, basically. Have you gone over numbers in any of those, or are you pretending that you're going to play 300 points?
It's more like what I tend to do is put together an army, know what I want from it, from the basics, paint that, and then so like you. So I've got Bisley filing cabinets.
Yeah. Which
are the drawers which fit perfectly for 15mm. So I tend to put an army in that, and I get a basic army, and then I morph it. So a couple of years ago, I did Zeiston Indians and did the sort of like 6 elephants, the bowmen, the swordsman, and then now I'm just adding the medium spearmen, the odds and sods and things like that. So I've got a Bisley drawer beside myself right now, beside my painting table. I've got one drawer which is full of Zeiston odds and ends, one drawer which is full of the War and Empire, Franks, Byzantines, and other bits and pieces, a load of generals. And there's another drawer which is sort of odds and sods of Essex and things like that. So I just sort of reach through there and look at what's interesting. But at the moment, it's I've got a Bisley drawer. Hang on, I'll show you. Look, here you go. There's a Bisley drawer.
I got it. I was going to say it's empty, but it's not quite in the light yet.
That's full of Franks, and as I say, that's going to turn into 2. But I'm going to sell one, I think.
Right. So you were saying you actually start with a core list, and then you build that, and then you actually start bolting stuff on. Because I must admit, I do it quite a different way. I look at what sort of core troops do I need to do, or would I like to do a range of different army lists? And I go, okay, I can imagine maybe needing 5 of them in one version. I can imagine maybe needing 6 of them. And I kind of build, a list and a half, which normally ends up being a list and about 80% or something.
I go at it slightly differently. I look at it as what would the tactics do? Am I going to have this command attack, this command defend, or am I going to do a mixed thing? And then I see how that list is going to apply it to those different areas. And then I'll look at the troop types.
Peter, I just thought you went for 6 elephants, 6 elephants, 6 elephants. And maybe
if it doesn't have that, yeah. Maybe
no. It's 6 elephants or medium knights.
Yeah, and then what goes with the elephants? What do I have to go with the elephants?
Well, usually a nice Chianti.
What fills in the gaps? Yeah. So Tamsin, when you're doing, like the 2000 AD stuff, is it because that, you've got some fantastic figures, is that sort of picking the cool figures, or is there something that you aim for with that?
For 2000 AD, I just basically getting one of everything. So.
Okay. Well, maybe like some of the, the 28mm bolt action things or whatever they are that Germans is. No, that was for someone else, though, wasn't it? I'm thinking back.
Yeah, I painted that section, squad of SS for somebody else.
Yeah.
My own World War II, 28mm World War II stuff, I know what the core platoon structure is, and I somehow end up with a company.
Yeah, it's terribly careless. No, I guess that's it. And Adam, you've been doing sort of the box sets and things like that. Have you just been building out a Victrix box, or?
No, it's what I've done. It's slightly different to 15s. 25mm though. I know I'm never going to do them 300 points. So I've basically done a list of, that'll probably be the list. And then another 50 points to swap things in and out. So I've got a list with some sort of like things that can be swapped in and out. And as I build more armies, that'll give me like more options. Like the Dacians, they're going to have a Sarmatian ally. And actually the Sarmatians, you can have 3 of them in the early Imperial Roman list. So that'll give me a little bit extra as well. So I'm building about 250, 260 points worth.
This means war.
So, Andy, what about you? How do you build stuff, or is it?
Well, I normally, I would. But what I did with the Vikings and also with my Seleucids was looked at the lists, and I sort of decide, well, this I think what my army list will be. Then you put it on the table and you think, actually, I need some other bits for it, or I want to configure it slightly differently. So at the moment, I've decided I'm going to get a few more heavy infantry for the Vikings, so I'll probably have to order some of those. And I've got some camels for the Seleucids, which I need to paint up at some point. Gives me the option of doing that. And playing on Tabletop Simulator, I had a bit of fun. I'll tell you about it a bit later on, doing early Achaemenid Persians. And I'm toying with the idea of my next major project of maybe buying a early Achaemenid Persian army if I can get some nice figures. In Symphony, I'd go War and Empire, but I had a glance at them some time ago and didn't really like the poses. I didn't think they were that nice.
Well, I think, I don't know if how many of you are on Facebook, but this week, I think, in the last couple of weeks, Dave from Museum has been putting out some pictures of 3D, those digital renders of their new Z range or Z range, depending on how transatlantic you want to be, of early Achaemenids. And it's kind of an interesting process. He puts them out there and then people make suggestions. And then because it's a 3D model, he just kind of changes it and throws out some other ideas quite quickly. It's not, I suppose it's much quicker than having to sculpt a master and do things like that. And I think, the Essex ones, I've got some Essex ones. I think, Dave, you've got Zeist, and Andy, you were saying you've looked at the War and Empire, but I think I've got some of their cavalry and they're a bit meh. But
I've got War and Empire.
Have you got the infantry and the cavalry? Or
yeah, for early Achaemenid, yeah.
That's
okay.
Zeiston have only done Zeiston are very slow with their sculpting. So that they've got later Achaemenids they've done, but they're early Achaemenids, they're just in the process. So far I've got Spar, they've done the sort of infantry and commanders, but they've not done any of the cavalry. So I've done the Immortals and the Spara Bara, and they're really, really nice.
Oh, those are Zeiston, aren't they?
Yeah, I've put them.
They're quite big, aren't they? Those figures.
They are. They're beautifully sculpted and really good.
Yeah,
they really take a bit of a wash really well. They've got really well defined armor. I've got 4 bases of the War and Empire cavalry, and then I think I've got 5 bases of the Zeiston ones, and they're just the War and Empire ones are kind of tiny, but just they're nowhere near the Zeiston. The Zeiston have got amazing detail on the armor, but then again, the infantry, I've got a very old bog standard Essex behind a wall of Pavises with sort of 2 poses, and I've never quite been happy with them. So seeing these museum ones, it's kind of just looking forwards to it's kind of, what am I going to buy in the museum sale in January? Really? Yeah. And I'm not sure I want to buy, make up a complete Indian army. I'm still not sure about that, whether I really want one of those, but regrading some of the maybe, but regrading some of the Zeiston, regrading some of my old Essex infantry might be really kind of cute as a way to do it and upgrade my Achaemenid Persians. Or I could just kind of double them up, because my biblical armies have got a different type of basing to my classical era armies. So I could have the guys on both of them. But yeah, it's tricky. I'm not quite sure, but I can see there being a lot of Persians. There's also been, is it both War Games Atlantic and Victrix have both brought them out in 28mm recently?
Yeah, there's been a lot of movement on the 28mm stuff. There's, I think, 3 different manufacturers who've done the plastics for 28mm Achaemenids. Whether I don't know, can't remember whether early or late, but there was a whole rash of them that came out.
I must admit, I managed. They must have come out, because I do remember thinking, should I buy some of these sprues and try and kit bash them for my generic Arab army that I've still got being painted at the moment, and add a few more bases of infantry to that. But yeah, so maybe Achaemenids will be the new rock and roll in 28s and in 15s towards the back end of this year, when there's another actual range out there as well. Could be an interesting one.
I haven't found a list that works yet, though.
Dave Allen's used it a lot, and he uses the Cyrus version with the 2 war wagons. And
you can get the Scythe chariots and the camels as well.
Did he have any luck with it, though?
He's done all right with it. It's not a world-beating army, but it's quite good fun, because it's got lots of silly, as you say, it's got war wagons.
All the funky stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to Dave Allen a couple of times because we've played against each other with the army, and he brings a lot of the cute troop types because he's had them since DBM or 7th edition era, and so just the ability to bring some of these funky toys on the table and going, oh look, it's pretty. It hasn't seen day of light in 20 years. Whoosh.
And then you run over it.
Yeah.
With an elephant.
Yeah. Cool, but
Yeah, I think I used it. One of the first competitions, ADLG competitions, we did overseas in the Tank Museum in Saumur. I think me and Dave, that was the one me and you went down to on Brexit vote day, wasn't it? Which was all a bit surreal. But I took it down to that, and I think having used it then, I still think it does still need that Greek ally with the spearman just to give it a bit of solidity in the middle. But I've also seen it used with almost an all cavalry version, and that's really, really effective. It just gets a really big wide army. I think Richard Ainsley used that in when I went over to Ireland.
Julian Lopez used to use it, didn't he? And he had this crazy massive army of nonsense with everything in it.
Didn't he have it in Belgium? Yeah, he had it in Belgium, didn't he? It's like 30 units.
Yeah, Dave Allen's army is quite fun. I mean, you can have some mediocre hoplites. Dave puts those in, they're quite useful.
This means war.
We got lost there going around the painting thing. So,
I've been
Simon,
painting the English, and I've
Andy, what have you been doing?
I've been painting more of these English feudal spearmen, and I've, apart from just flocking the bases and giving them a wash, I've finished 3 of the 4 units, and I'm working on the 4th. So the spearmen will be finished fairly soon, and then it's doing the Irish cairns, and then it's climbing the lead mountain to see what's on there.
Right. So, are the Irish cairns 15 mil, or are they?
No, 25s.
Okay.
The English feudal army can have Irish cairns. You can have them as you can have them as javelin men or light infantry javelin. So I'm going to cover both options.
Okay. Actually, no, I think I've got some of those from Hoka Hay. Somewhere in the lead pile, God knows where over there as well.
And these are the War Games Atlantic ones that I got originally to make up the rest of the
saga thing.
Saga stuff, and I had 12 figures left over, so they kind of dovetail neatly with making a feudal English army.
Fantastic. Okay, Adam, you're the other 28 mil expert of the moment. What you've got scissors there? Does that mean you're cutting out shield transfers?
I am. I've finished painting the Roman horses and riders, so they're going on the bases. I just need to finish off the shields and get them done over the next few days. So that's quite good. This is the annoying bit of the sword, the shield transfer. I was carefully cutting around the outside of the shields. So what better way to spend a couple of hours talking to you guys than getting the scissors out?
But that's quite a challenge, because you've got to focus, almost the exclusion of all other things if you're cutting around LBMS shield transfers.
Yeah, but to be fair, I spend most of the couple of hours we spend talking to each other, just not listening to you anyhow.
Yeah, that's probably true, actually. Yeah, that's.
Well, you can switch off during the quiz anyway. Just listen to the music and get the scissors out.
I would just put out a shout out for a bit of it's hardly modelling advice, but the scissors I'm using, I bought these a long time ago in the haberdasheries. I went and got a very, very posh pair of haberdashers cotton cutting. They were quite expensive, but they were super sharp and really sort of like precise. And if you're doing any precise scissor work, getting the right pair of scissors to do it, I fully recommend. It's a tool that it's worth spending a little bit of money on, rather than the sort of like big old loose things you get from your kitchen drawer.
Yeah. So what inspired you to get them? Yeah.
There is somebody who shall remain nameless in our club who works for the NHS and got us a load of ex-surgery scissor things with a curved blade. And
I use them to cut my toenails.
Yeah. So what inspired you? Did you research that haberdashery scissors were a thing, or did you just buy them by accident? Or
Well, no, it's because it's when I first doing rigging with the small ships, and I was sort of like having to do very sort of like small bits of cotton, and the scissors I had were just too big, so I just went into it was a department store, and I went to the haberdashery section and said, "Look, have you got a really small pair of precise scissors?" And they went, "Just the thing." So yeah, that's them.
Right.
Are you free, Mr. Humphreys?
Yeah, I was going to say Grace Brothers, ding ding, haberdashery, 10mm rigging going up. That's it.
That one now, John Lewis in Sloane Square. That's a good one for haberdashery.
There's, I can see there's going to be a queue of wargamers around the corner the day after this podcast gets released, and the poor people in John Lewis will be just looking at it going, what the holy mother of whatever has gone on wrong here?
I'm just astounded.
Those war games that do decide to do that John Lewis trip, also look out for teddy bear fur.
Teddy bear fur?
Okay.
Yeah, catching buildings.
Right. Okay.
I'm just astounded that Dave can give recommendations on what haberdashery to go to.
Well, I think Gordon, when we first started playing ADLG...
Is this a topic for a special?
And we needed cloths for the tables. Gordon went to John Lewis and went through all their it was curtain material till he found something suitable for a war games table.
It's where I got my first war games cloth. I went to the haberdasheries down at John Lewis and got it cut.
Was it the Sloane Square branch, or is that the war games?
No, you went to the
John Lewis of choice.
Well, actually, the one of I did the Sloane Square one, and I also did the one over at Stratford. That was for the update, getting the materials. That was for the ADLG bits when we first started playing that, because you needed to get the right sizes for the scenery.
So John Lewis is it's a slick organisation, is it? Did you go in there and said, is this for ADLG or for DBMM, sir?
Well, I actually went
DBMM,
in.
You want slightly thicker
I went in
weave,
with the sizes, and the lady there actually took me through and said, "Oh, well, for the sizes you're wanting, you want this," and she was cutting to the right sizes and everything else, and she was explaining, "You're better off buying by the yard, and this, that, and the other, supposed to this, that, and the other." And she was bringing out different swatches. Well, this one really wears really well. I was like, fantastic. She got really.
And we've got double-sized ones if you're playing Meg.
Yeah. Indeed, it could be all sorts of things. So
durability and stitch count.
Fantastic. Fields, sir.
Are they washable?
Yes. I think you have to hang them up and steam them, don't they? But okay. Well, let's move around the screen. Simon, what have you been painting or doing this week?
So I finished off painting 7 bases of later Louis XIV era mounted. So this is for the Swedish Army for ADLGR. So
nice.
they might look very similar to my 7 Years War Army. Don't ask any questions, but I had a whole bunch more mounted spare. So
yep.
Because as a war gamer,
you don't want to waste things, do you?
Yeah, you open your box and you go, there's 30 odd figures in there still. Oh, well, I'll paint them up.
Yeah. You accidentally bought 30 too many, of course.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
The other one I've been painting up, which is quite nice, is a quick shout out to a company called Levin Miniatures. They make really nice
6mm buildings.
Sorry?
6mm buildings.
6mm buildings.
Yeah.
Yes, I bought from them a bunch of their castle options for the fantasy game that Andy and I are playing. So I've painted up quite a big castle main gate, a portcullis, the main castle, just to make like a stone fortress and stuff like that. Because if you're gonna play a dwarf army, you need a big ass fortress. They paint it really nice.
I think I remember seeing them at a show in might have been in Wolverhampton or something once. They do kind of a lot of sort of turn of the century industrial buildings or something today as well, or am I getting that confused with someone?
And American Civil War era.
Wow. Okay.
I do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of 6mm modern stuff, which for those of us who like to play 6mm modern tanks and explosions, There's nuclear reactors, gas reactors, industrial stuff to blow up in. So all good fun.
Yeah, no, I think that getting that 6mm stuff on the table at some point, once I clear my table, that is a game that I can imagine playing solo at some point. So oh god, they're actually, just looking at them on screen, they're kind of reasonable, aren't they? 325, 375 for some quite big warehouse buildings and things. That's
they're quite nice resin, so you can just do a base coat, dry brush, and a bit of a wash inside them, and that works quite nicely. And they're hollow inside, so they don't weigh too much.
Right. Okay.
So I heard they're bringing out new ones with for sale signs on them.
Close down factories, but do you base them into little scenario bases, or do you leave them as individual buildings and position them on the terrain for that 6mm modern stuff?
I've based mine just because it's a little bit easier to carry them around.
Yeah.
So I've done my yoke.
Oh, there's the castle. Yep.
So I've done the castle on a.
Oh, that's a proper piece, isn't it? Yeah, that's a big base piece.
Yeah, so I've done this 60 mil wide frontage, and then I think it's two 40 mil deep bases, so 60 by 80. Just so the idea behind it is I'm going to make that into a BUA for an ADLG type of game. If you put a village or something like that down, there's a castle.
Is that what scale is that, Simon? That building, is it 6mm?
6mm.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the fortress, a little over the top, but hey, it's a dwarf army. You've got to have a big fortress. So I think it's about 120 mil wide. But the main gate is the actual 80 mil wide frontage. So you get nice curved walls, portcullis, base up. When you look at it for a dwarf army, you think, yeah, that works. So
they're going to have a lot of gold stacked up behind there, aren't they? Really, for sure.
I'm guessing they don't come painted.
Sorry?
I'm guessing they don't come painted.
No, they come just as grey. So a quick wash with some soaking water, get the resin muck off them. A couple of base coats. So these were done like a grey with a lighter grey, painted a couple other colours, bit of black. Jobs are good, and so I think they'll look quite nice on the table.
No, that's very tidy. Very tidy. So it's been catching up on some cavalry and then doing some micro scale terrain for slightly bigger fantasy battles then for you this week.
Yeah, and just for fun, something completely different.
Yeah, something is the thing. Okay, Tamsin, what about you? What's been the pre-moving home painting? Are you trying to clear away a load of stuff so that you've got clear decks for potentially shifting house, or are you just like, sod it, let's carry on? The machinery never stops.
Yeah, I've got a few things in the wing paint. So this week finished Romans, start of an army for ADLG, and covers pretty much everything I need for Infamy.
That's a really, really good job on the Lancashire Games figures. They look really good en masse, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the mixed up groups you showed at the start, where you've made it a bit more interesting, where we've broken up. They the officer teams, or what were they? The one before? Start that one. What's that? The officers.
That's command stands for ADLG.
Are they all commanders from Lancashire Games as well?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of variety. Normally they're a bit monopose, aren't they? But there's obviously a lot of different commander figures in there.
Well, when you look at them, I added the differences mostly partly by painting, but also by what other figures I put on the base. So some have got auxiliary infantry, one base has got legions.
No, that's tidy. They
look really good.
Yeah, that's a very solid thing. And the working group of
that's the only base that's purely for infamy, because one of the scenarios you need Roman engineers.
Oh, right. Okay. And are they Lancashire, or is that somebody else?
No, I think they're Bowada.
Bowada, yeah, they do a pack of those, don't they?
I'm Magister Militant. So.
Yeah, that'd be Magister Militant through the Bowada stuff. Yeah, I like that guy at the back holding the pickaxe, sort of diagonally. He looks quite a brute, doesn't he?
Put it into the other guy's back. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be it. That would be a big problem for them. Okay, so it's quite unusual for you to do a whole week of 15s, isn't it? There's nothing of larger scale crept in.
since I finished those, I've made a start on some 28s and some cobblestone figures for Judge Dredd. So
Okay. So back
I should have those to show off next week.
Back to the bigger scales. All right. And Peter, what about you then?
And
Sorry.
I've also been prepping. I ordered some individual figures. For Romans and Germans from Donington to use as leader figures for Infamy. So I've been prepping those, and once I finish this lot of 28s, I'll crack on. I prime and paint 15s.
Yeah, those Donington Romans are quite nice if they're the same ones as I've got. They've got some quite beefy kind of auxiliaries and other things like that are kind of quite hardcore.
Well, it's more Centurion.
So is Infamy that in 15 mil or 25?
I'm doing it in 15. I decided because it looked as though I was mostly going to be solo gaming it.
Yeah.
So
roughly how many figures do you need for it?
Depends. Probably about. It depends whether you're going Roman or Barbarian. So 50 to 60.
Right. Okay. So roughly the same as the Saga Warband then.
Probably a bit more actually. I think Saga's like in the 30s, isn't it?
But not that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This means war.
Right, Peter, what have you been doing this week? Is it something painted white?
Yes, actually, funnily enough. Spraying, I got my order of undercoats through after going through all my white paint for doing Austrians, funnily enough. So I've started undercoating some Bavarians and also more doing research about what Napoleonic army I want to do. So looking at a couple of the odd different names ranging from the two Sicilies, which sounded like an exceedingly good pizza, over to Württemberg, and exceedingly good beer. So I can have a pizza and beer while I'm playing with a Bavarian beer. Yeah. So
Württemberg's quite good, actually. It's quite a decent army.
Are they? I've got no idea. I just thought the name looked nice.
Yeah.
Have you actually ordered these figures yet, or
No, I was working out a list of a couple of things because I was also looking at polls, as you do, and thinking how I can mix and match. Because the interesting thing I'm finding out that on some of the lists you can have sort of allied contingents, and it just sounded really good having a lot of Polish hooligans charging along at people with lances and everything else.
If you want to do a French army with all the different colourful allies, concentrate on doing the 1812, because build up an 1812 list. You can have plenty of French, but they dragged along everybody, basically. So you can kind of get away with having whatever other European you want.
But most of them were in different corps, Adam, weren't they, really? I mean...
Yeah, I know, but it's like the Poles... Yeah. The Polish Fifth Corps was with the main army. The Bavarians served with Udino's Second Corps. You know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah. Well,
is this one where they dragged them all into Russia and got them killed?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, look, I can tell you all about that, Peter, if you want. I've got a whole series of recordings that you can listen to educate yourself. Which
That's
is
funny, that, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that's the suggestion, Adam.
If you can find a book called...
He uses the word educate
glory
in the broadest sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter, if you can hold a book called With Eagles to Glory, written by a guy called Peter Gill, that's got all about Napoleon's allies in 1809. That's quite a good book.
It's not about Space 1999, no? That's a different thing.
Eagles to Glory. June's out next year now. So, French Army 1812. Great.
I've ordered a Württemberg division for my 1809 from AB.
Oh,
you've ordered a whole division?
Well,
how many figures in a division?
No. So in Bataille Empire, in BE, it's going to be...
Four regiments, probably.
It's three units of line, one knot of light infantry.
Yeah, like I said, 4 units. Yeah.
Adam, you weren't joking. The list French in Russia 1812 goes over 2 pages, and there's even an Imperial Guard Corps.
It's mix and match. If you want cavalry, it's like because that's what I did. So I did the 4th Cavalry Corps. So that's like one division of Polish Uhlans and the division of Saxon and Westphalian Crushers. It's
I can even have ice cream.
You can take the Neapolitans. You can take Italians. Even the Austrians, although they didn't fight with the French, were on the French side in 1812.
Well, they did.
It's not on the list though. It's not.
They
getting
fought.
in.
They fought with the Saxons. The battle called Gorodechno against the Russians.
No, you know,
Then they went
I'm sorry. I am the expert here on Napoleonic Wars, and I'm pretty sure that the Austrians never fought successfully either for it themselves or for anybody else, from what I can remember from my extensive learnings. So,
Cause of the army in 1812. There's French, Württemberg, Italians, Polish, Bavarians, Saxons, Westphalians, Prussians, Bavarians, Poles.
That's
And,
That is crazy.
are we getting into supercalifragilisticexpialidocious yet? Is that
Kind of feels like it. Kind of feels like I'm buying more figures.
Yeah, it could
Lead
be.
Mountain, here we come. I can even have Neapolitan Guard sailors. Woo!
Oh, so just going back, Dave. You got away with that by saying you bought a core. But what in
Or a division.
A division.
How many? You bought a division just on the sly. So in
Yes.
AB terms, how many figures and how many thousands of pounds is that?
No. So 1809 French, you have 3 divisions in the army. So you have one of cavalry, one very large division of French line infantry, maybe reserve, and then a 3rd division, which is a Württemberg division, which is a smaller, sit in the middle sort of thing. And that's basically, you've got to have one light unit, you've got to have one line unit, but that division is 3 line and 1 light infantry, and they're cheaper
So-
than the French.
That's very interesting, Dave. But you're dodging the question about how much have you just spent with AB.
45 quid.
Okay, that's
How many
very
figures is that?
acceptable.
There must be at least
8.
12.
6 to a base, bloody blah. I didn't do the artillery. I just use a French line for the artillery. I might pad it out, but it means that will give me the option to do.
Oh, you're doing my idea of 6 to the base.
Yeah,
the AB so big.
I told you to do that. Anyway, so I think I've got 8 different 1809 lists I can do now. So it's basically I'm just going through that list and looking at all the different options. Do I use dragoons? Do I use cuirassiers? Anyway, we're going to have this conversation at the time.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation another time. Fine. All right. Okay. I think from my point of view, it's really just been a question of that irritating last bit of finishing a large number of figures where you just keep going back and back and back and spotting little bits and having to touch up one. So I've got these 60 odd Arab cavalry that, you know, one day this week I did all the, well, not every horse, but a face blaze on, you know, a third of the horses and doing the white socks on them. And then that's the whole thing on 60 of them. And then I put on a load of banners and things like that from, which was a little big man transfer sheet of banners that I put on. And then I got a couple of really useful boxes, the 4 litre one, which is just about deep enough for pretty much all of the figures, apart from, somewhat irritatingly, the elephant. So I'm going to have to come up with some complicated way of storing the elephant on its side. And I think the second elephant, I might actually just pin the 3 riders and take them off so that I can actually just plonk them in just to make storage easier and do that. But so the really useful boxes came from Amazon, I think, and I've been getting ready for them. But I think one of the things I found with the fact that nearly all of these are plastic cavalry was that I put on some of the arms in really kind of dynamic upwards reaching poses with spears, and there are about 2 or 3 of the figures that were just too big to fit in the boxes. But because they're plastic,
They stick out over the side of the stand. You don't realise till after you've done it. I've done that.
No, this wasn't over the side of the stand. They were just too high to put the lid on the box.
Right, yeah.
So I actually just sort of sawed the arm off just above the elbow with a really, really sharp scalpel knife. And then, you know, using Airfix glue, because it welds them together, I glued the arm back on with the hand at a slightly different angle so that the spear wasn't actually above the top of the base anymore. So it's like, so I can just kind of fix that, really, which is kind of weird. So they've now all of the cavalry have got based, and today I did the put the sand on it, did the wood stain, did the dry brushing of the base, and put the initial bit of grass flock on. So I've got the grass tufts to do, but after that's done, I will be just as the weather turns and becomes really wet and damp for about 3 days, I'm just going to be at the stage at which I need to take them outside and do the Tester's dull coat spray to kind of really, take all the shine off the figures. So they're going to sit there for about another 3 or 4 days until the weather turns again, and then the cavalry will be done. And my approach that I used with the Hungarians from the 15 mil of going, I don't like doing horses, so I will just do them all first. I'll have done that with a 28 mil army as well. So then I'll be more than halfway there and be able to crack on with the infantry after that.
What's your plan? Your plan for sort of storing them in the really useful figure boxes? What's your plan for sort of transporting, going to games and stuff?
I think my theory is that if I'm playing a 28 mil competition or a game, I will be going by car. So I will just take them in the 28 mil boxes. Okay. Because in 2 of these boxes, they're also, because they're plastic, and I've used Magnabase over the full footprint of the 60 by 60 base. You've got very light figures mostly in that are completely Magnabase down. So certainly I think the cavalry, you could pretty much turn the whole thing upside down. It wouldn't be a problem. So I don't think carrying them from the car to where they're going is going to be overly problematic. So what does the
Magnabase stick onto then?
It sticks onto the MDF base, and then in the really useful box, I put a floor of ferrous sheet, which is basically Magnabase.
Oh, I was going to say,
isn't.
Because I've gone with something similar, but rather than really useful box, I've gone really old school, and I've just got some old box files, and I'm putting that in because the box files are just that bit deeper. Yeah. So they're kind of handy, and they were also free.
The only thing else I do is put a cloth or something over them, a light cloth, like one of those glasses cleaning cloth type things, because it just stops them moving around if they get knocked as they're moving around a bit.
No, that's not a bad idea, actually. Yeah,
I've got loads of bubble wraps, which is what I use.
Oh yeah, you can put bubble wrap over it as well, but I've got box files, but I'm not sure whether I've started doing these really useful boxes because they're better or just because they feel like a more high tech solution. And I'm a war gamer, and I'm just attracted to kind of clever solutions for things. They're actually not actually quite as good. So
the good use of the really useful boxes compared to some of the other storage ones, because you've got that nice lid, they fit together and they stack. So
you can stack them well, yeah.
They interlock it.
Lego type of effect. So when you put them into a boot of a car, they don't slide around, where box files slide.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, true. Actually, yeah, that is a good point. Thank you. There is a reason. I've not just bought them because they were like cool and I couldn't be bothered to do any more box files. So yeah, that's been my painting. I think that's been everybody's painting.
This means war.
Okay, that's the painting roundup done. I think looking around the screen, quick nods from people who've done gaming. I think 5, it looks like 5 people have done some gaming out of the 7. So we will quickly rattle round and do that. Mr. Saunders, did you manage to, I'm trying to know, the club was caught by Tier 2 this week, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've closed the club, which is a real disappointment because that was keeping me sane at the moment, because I was going in.
Shall we have a vote on that?
I'm going to say, how can we tell?
It's a relative possibility, you see.
I'm going to say, which tents we're using, Dave?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was going in a lot to the club and that, which was good, but that's finished. So I've not done any gaming this week, apart from had a game of TTS online with Andy last night, which was a notable win for a Aechemenid Byzantine army.
Aechemenid, wow.
Aechemenid Byzantine army.
Well, it wasn't that notable. You play better than me, but yeah, you clear winner for you anyway.
Against the Normans in Italy.
Yeah. Well, I did cock up the list. I didn't tell you halfway through, but anyway,
Yeah, you were trying to work out whether your list was legal for about.
No, I thought I was missing 1 or 2 units. It turned out later that I was, but I don't think it would have made any difference anyway to the result.
So how did the game play out?
I managed to beat up his knights with medium cavalry bow, basically.
Yeah, he kind of drew my knights forward and then managed to sort of, he did the usual kind of horns of the impy thing and got round behind both flanks. And, you know, even though we hadn't actually hit any of my guys from the flank, it was only a matter of time.
His impetuous knights were, I mean, I was with the Aechemenid Byzantine army, I've got drilled knights. So I've got Latanicons, so they're knights, medium knights, impact. So I used 3 of them on one side, 2 on the other side, a load of medium cavalry in the centre, pulled his impetuous knights into the medium cavalry bow, shot them up a bit, and then I was going to thrash him on the flanks. And it went quite well, that. Apart from we had some problems with TTS, but it was...
Was it kind of almost an entirely mounted army then, Dave, your commandant?
No, I had the Varangian Guard.
Right.
Exceedingly expensive, and they actually got into some spearmen. And
got beaten up by them, I think.
And promptly threw a 6-1 to Andy, which my Varangian Guard survived, being elite, armoured, etc., which stopped them going terribly wrong.
Right.
But yeah, that's what happens to Varangian Guard. You pay 13 points for the most expensive infantry troop type, and they immediately throw a 6-1 on the infantry.
Right. Okay. So Andy, it sounds like was it just one where, was it a list that you'd used before, or was it?
Yes,
it's a list.
It's a list I'd used before, and it had actually gone better the previous time, but I just couldn't get it fired up and moving this time. And Dave outmaneuvered me. I think I chose the matchups wrong as to where I put things,
So which part of the take? Did you drop the knights in the centre or on one of the wings?
No. I put the knights in the most open part of the table, which was the right flank. And Dave, in fact, put his mounted command of his there. In the centre, I had a small foot command with a bow and a couple of spearmen. And then I had an allied command of Al-Gabagid Arabs with a mixture of some terrain troops, some 2 medium spear and 2 LMI bow, and a mounted wing of 3 impact cavalry and a light cavalry. And the idea would be they'd run around one side or support the advance of the terrain troops. But then the guys Dave had across them were 3 bowmen and a bunch of tough infantry, so that didn't look too clever.
Neutralise the 3 chargy cavalry with a solid infantry block and some shooters. Then,
essentially,
one command of like 6 elite impetuous knights, but facing them I had at least 5 medium cavalry bow, 3 drilled knights elite, and 2 knights. So I had two generals ganging up on one lot of impetuous knights, which works to treat.
Yeah, it was
okay. Yeah, that does sound a bit tricky when you describe it like that. Yeah, that sounds iffy. Simon, have you managed to fit in I presume, an online game this week as well?
No, so I managed to get my game last week on Thursday, just as... during the week, yes, got you. Yeah.
Yep, a week from podcast recording.
We were the last to, as we left the building, close the door of the pub, lock the keys, threw them away. So...
Oh, dear.
It was sad. So we made the effort to drink more beer and wine that night just to help Ravi.
So what stuff did you get on table?
So I managed to get a game of Renaissance on. So got one of our club members, Jeff. He brought out his later Germans, so 1660 Germans and I brought some Louis XIV French. So the debate of whether tassels would beat sauerkraut. And the first time, the French got up. We actually managed to get all the mounted and the shock foot in the right time, and things actually happened. It was brilliant.
Wow! So it's like using a kind of lightweight Swedish army that actually works properly.
Yeah. So we managed to get the Louis XIV French mounted, with all the tassels and the cravats. We were slightly impetuous, so I had 6 of those. They were running around. Using uncontrolled, having a lot of fun, and they managed to line up against effectively medium swordsmen in the open. And I went, I'll have though. Came charging through. Turn later, they'd burst through that unit, and they had the whole flank nicely open. So,
wow,
it played quite nicely. You definitely got the effect of a a stodgy German line versus the French. So the Germans advanced to a point, held down, and just wall-to-wall shooting. And then on the flanks, these two big cuirassiers pushing through, where the French were trying to pick a fight everywhere, bit of massed artillery, and making facetious comments about German Black Forest Gâteau not being as good as a croissant or something.
Yeah. So what did Jeff make of the rules then? Because he's sometimes a skeptic about some of these things, and I imagine beating him didn't really help. But,
well, it was one of those games where we've all had an ADLG game where it shifted in the last turn and a half. So as we came into the final turn, it was looking like Jeff was about to beat me because he started to mangle my flanks, and then I finally managed to get a proper charge in and then burst through. I think he was vaguely ambivalent towards it. You definitely got
that's a result. That's good. That's high praise indeed.
To be honest, that's one of the most accurate descriptions I've ever heard of Jeff ever.
Definitely got the feel of a good game. You got the feel of what a Fogar game of later Germans versus Louis XIV French. Artillery, lots of shooting, shock mounted, and a bit of scary foot.
Well, our games went quite well, I thought. Because we played 2 games with it, and we both won 1 game. So, it's not a question of being overbalanced either way. But I thought the games went well. I mean, we got through the game in about 2 hours and had a result and plenty of excitement along the way.
So it was quite good. There's a few questions that come out of it, make you think a few tweaks here and there need to be done. But otherwise, it was thoroughly enjoyable and got to drink wine and say goodbye to the club for a few more months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it opens. Yeah,
I had a game last week against Dave Ray where I was facing a Greek army of 34 units.
Wow, was that a lot of skirmishes or just a lot of rubbish hoplites?
No, that was illegal because Army Builder had not worked out a lot of the points. He should have had about 27, but he ended up with 34 because for some reason the Army Builder thing didn't add on the points when he kept putting hoplites in.
Right. Okay, that's a good trick if you can do it, isn't it? Definitely. That's one of the the great things in Sun Tzu's Art of War. Try to jimmy the army builder so you end up with greater numbers of forces than your opponent. I think I remember that chapter very well. It didn't work. Oh right, okay.
Because this is when I was using early Persians, and we just sort of stood in the field and used his hoplites for target practice, and that went quite well.
Yeah, that's not going to work particularly well standing in a field. So Adam, did you fitted in a game against someone down in your
I had one game last week.
One or zone 3? I can't remember which it is.
Tier 1. We're just like we're not really caring about this whole thing at all. Actually,
no. Wow.
I had a game of ADLD down in Toyman. Played Huns against Palmyrans. I played the Huns. A stunning victory, but it actually taught me something about the Palmyrans. Do you remember? I think it was Burton last year, doubles. We played someone that had 300 points worth of Palmyrans, and we lost.
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's that bloke Dave, wasn't it? Yeah.
Wasn't that me and Richard?
Oh yeah, you beat me as well. You beat Ian and me, yeah.
Wow,
we won the competition.
But, we got beaten by 300 points worth, and I was thinking, oh, that's quite an effective. I like that. I like how that got put together. But I learned with Palmyrans, I think they're one of those armies that are really good at 300, but a bit of pants at 200 because they just don't have quite enough of their stuff to do what they do. So it's like Palmyran, I think, is it's one of those very point-dependent armies. They get better the bigger they are. At 200 points, there's just, I could just swamp it.
I don't know.
It's not enough, and the Huns can get around the space.
Richard won Warfare with 200 points of Palmyrans.
Oh, maybe it was just my opponent that was crap.
I played him in the final game, and he out-deployed me and beat me. He all he needed to do was defend, which was a bit annoying. But
no, because he had sort of like he had the Romans, the impact swordsmen, but not enough. He had the cataphracts, but not enough. It's like he didn't. Maybe he should have just concentrated on one thing or other, but he tried to sort of like do a balanced army, and like just didn't really work. So victory is always nice.
Did you get a very open field to use the Huns? Because
Yeah, but I did my version of the Huns where I have the 6 impetuous foot Germans and the sort of like the 4 sort of like thing. So it's my Hun.
Right.
Yeah, I suppose I should have said my Huns. They're not your classic steppe army. They've sort of like they've got a wodge of heavy foot. They've got a wodge of sort of like German impetuous cavalry, and the light horse and the cav are more a supporting force rather than the leading force. Which it's actually quite a fun army to use, to be perfectly honest.
What about the what about the important stuff about the £2.50 drink all you can drink tea? Did you manage to get around that and the mask thing, or?
Well, it's not. I mean, I always do that when I go there, just to give them a bit of money, because I do find it hard to drink 3 cups of tea in a couple of hours. But I always force myself, because if you only drink 2, because you can buy a cup of tea for £1, so if you only get 2, you're sort of like lost out. So I always force the third one down, and I always end up needing quite a lot of wee. But it's also a £2.50 tax for not having to wear a mask. Yeah. Because it's like when you're upstairs, you've got to wear a mask. But if you're drinking tea, you can go, I am drinking tea. Yeah. Therefore, I need to take my mask down, which is one of the reasons why I wear it like this, because it's quite sort of like, hey, look, see, it's me. Whoa. See,
El Bandito.
Whoa, see,
if Dick Chapman hadn't liked tea, they'd never have caught him.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if you're drinking the tea, that's cheaper than paying £3.50 to go grouse shooting at the same time as the game as well.
Is that what it costs to go grouse shooting?
Am I getting lockdowns confused somewhere? It's like, because that was a thing at one point, wasn't it? Okay. Well, look, I also had a game. Well, I posted a game online. I think the game me and Dave played last week. I edited all the video and posted that up online this week as well. So I've published a game rather than played one. Then I actually did another tabletop simulator game as well online against Paul Georgian from over the States, who's a kind of Byzantine expert he always plays with Byzantine armies. So I made an Arab army in tabletop simulator, which, with a bit of time on my hands, I'd worked out how to take the tabletop simulator units apart and put them together, and I think and colorize them and do all sorts of other bits and pieces. So I've actually created on tabletop simulator in the in Madaxeman's workshop, which is there for anyone to find, a generic Arab army that's got elite cavalry, which are on different coloured horses, and they're all in different coloured horse barding, and I cobbled together some sort of camel riders from one list and stuck them on horses. So it's actually much more irregular looking than most of the other tabletop simulator armies out there, and it's available to use. And I used it as a Khurasanian army, which inevitably meant it was cavalry on both wings ish, and a Death Star sort of command down the middle, and then also tried to build a kind of a bit like I've done against you, Dave, a sort of a block of heavy infantry spearmen to give a bit more kind of solidity as well, and came up against a Byzantine army that was a Nicephorian one. I think had 8 of the mixed spear bow shooters, which when you've got kind of a mostly cavalry army is a bit tricky, pretty tricky indeed. And I got the De Lama Death Star into those guys pretty intact with the swordsman as well, and it just didn't go straight through them like a dose of salts. It took a couple of turns, then the elephant punched a hole and turned onto someone's flank, and then they carried on fighting for 2 more turns, and then I just got another one, and that guy turned onto someone's flank, and that didn't collapse either. So my kind of plan of draw them out on the wings and punch through the middle just didn't work, and I just ran out of units before stuff got caught.
This reminds me of there's a quote by Marshal Soult about a battle called Albuera in the Peninsular War, and his report to Napoleon went, "I pierced their centre, I turned their flanks, the day was mine, and still they didn't run."
Yeah. Well, I didn't even pierce the centre really. It just, against what you think are mediocre spearmen, you think they should really fall over against an elite De Lama Death Star. But no.
If they had any manners, they would, yeah.
Yeah, if they were doing it properly, they would, but they refused to do so. So that was kind of a struggle. But I think I've got another game on on Thursday this week against Massimo, who's one of the guys who's created some of those armies, who's not played for a while. So, and I think we might be playing Battle Empire on Friday as well. So there's a couple more games in the pipeline for sure. Having done painting, having done playing, we are at the French disco do you wish you were at, instead of being locked down somewhere in the UK, stage of the weekend, or possibly stage of the podcast? Say incroyable, really, incroyable. But without further ado, because I think we're all really keen to get onto the quiz questions, because the sooner the quiz questions, the sooner we hear the music again, really, much as we love the quiz questions. So, Andy, hit us with, I guess, last week's answers to start with.
Well, the questions last week, you might remember, were all about impressive privates. And
impressive
I said
pirates.
no, privates, not pirates. And I said the following 3 people who became army generals started their military careers as private soldiers, and who were they? Number 1, the person who died at the age of 80, having been wounded 33 times during his military career. 3 of those wounds were received at the Battle of Wagram in 1809, where he led an unauthorized attack, which was instrumental in winning the battle. After the battle, Napoleon said he deserved to be shot for disobeying orders, and then made him a marshal.
Oudinot.
That's right, Marshal Oudinot. Question 2. This man was chief of the Imperial General Staff of the British Army in the First World War, and once removed a general from his command on the Western Front with the words, "Oris your for Rome."
Oh dear.
Anyone know?
No idea.
Sir William Robertson.
Still no idea. No.
Well, that's who he was.
Was he the jam guy? The marmalade guy? No.
No, I think the other guy was in the jam. And then This Irishman had risen to the rank of sergeant in the British Army, emigrated to the USA, rose from the rank of private soldier, again to become a widely respected major general in the Confederate Army, and was killed at the Battle of Franklin in 1864.
Cleburne?
Yep, it was Cleburne, that's right. Well done. Right, this week's questions are called Big Bang Theory. On each of the following dates, there was a Big Bang, and I want to know what blew up on each occasion. So, on the American continent, 30th of July, 1864. The second one is in Belgium, 7th of June, 1917.
We've been there. Yes, that's true. You're right. That's exactly what I was thinking. We've been there, Adam. Rock and roll.
Okay. And the third one is...
Sorry, what was the second one?
What was the second one? What was the second? We were just having a private conversation there, Andy.
Yeah, the second one was...
Sorry about that.
7th of June, 1917, somewhere in Belgium, something blew up. And the third one is somewhere in the Mediterranean, on the 26th of November, 1941, something blew up. But you just have to tell me what blew up.
So I'm just wondering, for Belgium, since we've been there, the only place I can think of, Charleroi, is blown up. It hasn't been repaired.
Yeah.
Nobody repaired it.
There'll always be Charleroi.
There'll always be Charleroi.
It wasn't a beer factory. I'll give you that much clue.
No, if there was a beer factory in Charleroi,
We'd have found
been
it.
A terrible waste. We would have found it. Yeah, that's exactly the right answer.
Okay,
well, look.
Growing out of it.
So that's this week's questions.
That's this week's questions. Okay, then. Well, look, we've done the quiz, we've done the painting, we've done the gaming. We've just got a couple more bits to do before we round up on another sub an hour and a half, which is remarkable for us sort of podcast this week. I think just a quick run round the screen to see what's on the gaming and painting table for you, or the shopping table possibly. next time. So Peter, starting with you, you're in the City of London. I can see behind you on your Zoom screen. What are you going to make an impulse purchase for this time?
Well, thanks to Adam's view on 1812, I'm now looking at all the colours of the rainbow for an army for BE. And talking of that, we're going to have a bit of a practice game on Friday afternoon on TTS, where we're going to try out a few battles and see how it works on TTS. So I can try out a few ideas, and I'm tempted to have a very nice bottle of Austrian wine to go with my Austrian army for the Friday afternoon.
Oh, sorry, Peter. Final piece of advice on that is when you buy a French corps or French division, make sure you get one that's got Swiss troops in, because the Swiss wore red coats, which kind of looks cool in a French army.
Red coats in the French army. It's getting better all the time. I was looking forward to, I've got the ice cream Neapolitans, I've got the Württembergs, I've got the Bavarians, I've got even a few Uhlans Poles charging in. So it's getting even better with some red-shirted Swiss going in as well, just to wind up everybody. Perfect.
And the Neuchâtel regiment wore yellow.
Okay. Fantastic. There's the total opposite to my spray more white Austrians then.
Yeah, but Peter,
I might actually have to buy another tin.
Which unit will you paint bright gold?
Yeah.
The Eagles.
And then recover and try.
They didn't have rock bands in the Napoleonic armies.
Yeah, I think rock for the Eagles.
The Eagles aren't a rock band.
They're not a rock band. No, but
that's what you talk. That is.
No, but actually thinking that there's Napoleonic troops you can paint differently, that does mean or remind me that this week I do need to get on my push bike and cycle over to the Leray Mayer mansion to pick up some of that Pendragon 10mm French stuff that he bought a while ago. So I should be able to do that sometime this week, I think, and add them to the lead pile. But I think for me it's going to be, as I said before, a bit of waiting for clearer weather and spraying all of these cavalry, and then probably taking a whole bucket of photos of them and trying to get those online, and then thinking about making a dent in the Arab infantry, who are sort of slowly getting painted almost by accident when I'm using some contrast paints and I'm slapping a bit onto some of the infantry I've got to see what they look like. I've also got a whole mess of different shields, excess shields clipped off all the different plastic sprues that I'm going to try and turn into casualty markers for the Arabs and do some sort of mock Arab sort of simplistic shields with 1 or 2 or 3 shields on them to leave behind these figures and have sort of bespoke Arab shields on it. And I'm still at some point, I can just feel, seeing there seems to be a lot of 10mm stuff happening in World War II. I can kind of feel there's a point at which I'm going to attempt to sell even more of my 10mm Second World War stuff on eBay and then replace it with something newer. Because
what 10mm stuff have you got in World War II? What nationalities?
Oh, well, loads. I've sold a lot, but I've still got a lot. But it's all just quite inconsistently painted because it was sort of built and bought over a long period of time. And I'm just kind of wondering whether I should be... Basically, this is an excuse to say I'm thinking about buying an airbrush. Really,
send me a list, and I might be in the market for some of that stuff.
Okay, I'll dig out a list for that then. And then I've got a
So a question about your Arabs, because Arabs army is something I've never really looked at, so I know very little about them. Now, I've seen some photographs of yours of your surprisingly garishly brightly painted Arabs. Yeah. Now, is that realistic? Should they look like that, or have you just gone a bit crazy?
No, they should. You look at some of the pictures. Yeah. In the V&A, they actually had some very nice dress and the garments and everything else from that period, and some fantastic colours, really, really rich dyes, some really gorgeous colours coming through on it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But I was actually thinking more of the barding. Is the barding really that?
Yeah, they were really garish.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's just like I want to be seen as I shove my lance up your nose. I don't want to be just fighting you with you. I want to clash with you as well.
Yeah, no, I think there are two. There is two trains of thought when it comes to painting up Arabs. There is paint them all yellowy, deserty, and wash them and make them sort of look like they blend into the background, or just go big with silks and an expensive Mamlucky type malarkey. So I think I've got the 15 mils, which my cavalry are pretty colourful, but some of the infantry are pretty dusky and sandy. But this lot, buying the contrast paints and them just being bigger figures, I thought, sod it, let's go for it, and just go big on the colours. So yeah, these are at the gaudy end of the spectrum, and now that Peter's given me an entirely perfectly historically justifiable, well researched justification for what I've already done, I'm
Peter
even happier.
said.
What Peter said, yeah, that's it. What research have you done? Well, I asked Peter after I'd done it.
I also saw some in Abu Dhabi as well when I was there.
Okay, what 28mm Arabs?
But that's
well, they were a little bit larger than 28mm, funnily enough, but they were sort of riding down the street.
Okay, all right, down the Sheikh Zayed Road in a Lamborghini,
and
actually, their Lamborghinis are pretty garishly coloured, aren't they? So
they were fantastic. Sense. Yeah, they were very nice colours. They only came out at night because it was a bit too hot.
Yes, that's probably true. Yeah. Okay.
So lots of gold. That's why I liked them.
Yeah, a bit more spray. So Tamsin, what's on your painting pile this week? I think we touched on it a bit earlier.
I've copperstone figures to finish, and then the Donington ones for the infamy characters leaders.
Yeah, no, those 15mm officers are great if they're the same figures I'm thinking of. Really, really nice, really solid figures.
Yeah.
All right.
I have placed an order this week for some figures.
Well done for admitting it. That's the first step in not clearing the edition.
Some more Judge Dredd figures, and also some Polish Airborne for my sort of World War II Paris collection.
So are the Polish different figures to the British Paris?
Different hats, got different helmets.
Berets.
Different berets.
I just wanted a few with the Polish beret, because it was different formats for British beret, and
is it a different colour, or is it just a different style?
Can a beret be?
Extras to make up a platoon will be the standard British in helmets.
How different can a beret be? Because didn't British Paris have berets as well?
They were very different because they had them sort of flopped.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe we should do a whole separate.
They were worn. So yeah.
We should do a whole separate episode on berets, great berets of the Second World War. It could be kind of niche, couldn't it? No. There's
Osprey's
a lot of people
probably
shaking
done
their
it,
heads.
hasn't he?
Yeah, Osprey's probably done it as well. Yeah, 1944 to 45 June the 7th, which could be it. All right, Andy, what?
A British beret versus German Feldcappen.
Feldcappen, yeah, that'd be Feldcappen or something like that. So Andy, what about you? What have you got on the decks this week?
Hopefully finish off the spearmen, then go on to the Kerns, and I might finish them within a week, probably won't, and that'll keep me going another week, and I guess then I'll have finished the 25mm army, and then, as I said earlier, we'll dive into the Lead Mountain and see what's there.
Okay, and have you got another game with Mr. Ray lined up? What's your matchup this week?
Yeah, we're carrying on doing the sort of historical battles with strategists, working our way forward in time. So we did the one with Mardonians, what's it called? Plataea last week. And this week we're doing Arbella. And Dave got choice of army, so he's chosen the Macedonian, so I'm the late Persians.
So how many of these battles have you done so far then with the strategist each?
This is just the second one.
Okay.
Right. Then we move forward. I think the next one is one of Pyrrhus's battles. And then I just jotted down a number of battles that I could think of, and we're going to work our way through them.
Actually, that might be an interesting for some of the rest of us to have a go at. And I don't know, Dave, maybe we could double team one of those as well and try see how we did it if we've got time over the next week or so.
Yeah, well, you've got the list, Tim. I sent it to you.
Yeah, that's true. I've got that list. I can put that online.
It just gives a reason for why you would do a particular battle. I mean, obviously, we don't faithfully represent the terrain. We just use armies that could have fought that battle based on the list.
Yeah.
I've decided that I don't really want to fight Macedonian pikes, so I'm not going to put any infantry in the middle. I'm going to My centre's going to consist of 4 mediocre cavalry who are going to run away if anyone comes near them.
I've just seen that picture you sent of the Macedonian pikes. That guy that did how many figures?
1,440, I reckon.
Wow.
That was incredible, that.
It's a bit mental, isn't it? I mean, it must have cost a few, Bob.
What was it, 48 figures onto a base?
Yeah, and the 30.
And how many bases?
30.
Of Macedonian pike?
Yes.
That is one hell of a game.
That's a proper collection, isn't it? That really is.
2 light horse walk up to and go, you can only move 2 UD a turn.
Yeah.
I've just broken you from walking. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're still going to fill the whole table, there, aren't you? Really, with that.
It need one hell of a hold all for that lot.
I guess so.
I'm not quite sure how many really useful boxes he need, but I suspect he need about 3 or 4.
No, I think it may be more than that. Maybe more than that.
An articulated lorry might be needed.
Yeah, quite possibly. So, Dave, what have you got? Are you still doing bits and pieces, or do you know what bits and pieces they're going to be this week?
Well, there's 4. There's 4 lots of Frankish bowmen on the table at the moment. I've been painting this evening. I've got 4 bases of samurai, more samurai impetuous foot, the monks. So that was part of the Eureka order I put in, is for the warrior monks, just to pad them out.
Has that arrived? Or was that Eureka UK now? The new...
I ordered that last week, but I'm a bit concerned when they might show up, because I don't think they've got enough in stock of the Württembergers.
Right.
If they've got to come from Australia, it could be weeks and weeks.
Yeah, but the other thing with that is that I'm now sitting here thinking I've got to research the Württemberg army, for which there's not a lot of information. They've got some funky... on War Flag, they've got some funky regimental flags. But there's a book out on the 29th of December this year called Fearless and Loyal, A History of the Württemberg Army, 1792 to 1815, by David Zumsteg, which is the only book I can think but by that time I'll have probably painted them just in time to buy a book which tells me I painted them all wrong.
You could always exercise self-control.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen, is it? Right.
But Dave, as I say, you get hold of a book called Swords Around a Throne, if you can, or With Eagles to Glory. They both have got useful things about contingents of the French army, including allies.
Cool. I've heard of the Eagles Around the Throne one. I might have a look at that one.
Swords Around the Throne.
Yeah, that's
by a guy called John Elting. Excellently written. But With Eagles to Glory is all about the French allies in 1809.
Okay. All right. Well, Adam, what are you doing with your special scissors? Are you doing special scissors stuff this week?
My scissor sisters have been put away, but I'm doing 2 exciting wargamey things this week. Tomorrow, I'm having a game of Battle Empire, which will rematch of the last one, so that'll be interesting. See how that goes. And then on Saturday, I'm basically going to a competition.
Ooh.
Yeah,
somehow. I know. Yeah. Wow.
Well, I say competition. It's not really a competition. What it is 4 of us have booked 2 tables at a tournament all Saturday. So that's 3 games in a day, which is
social
kind
group of 6, which is fine, isn't it? Yeah.
Competition type experience, right? It's group of 4. Yeah. It's 4 of us, so it's I'm going to have a whole day of playing 3 games of ADLG.
Does that mean you've got to have a curry the night before to sort of like bring on the full sort of competition ambience?
Well, no, funny enough, the night before I'm even going to the pub.
Perfect.
Which is with people not of my own household. You housebound London people, you.
Give it time.
We remember when that was legal, yeah.
Yeah, and if for people living, if the listener that's in Manchester or Liverpool, I'm probably not even going to have a substantial meal with it.
Well, by that point, Manchester will be in the exterior of lockdown.
Well, it might be in rebellion.
Although the pub I'm going to does do a mean packet of pickled onion flavoured Monster Munch, which I'm not sure whether that counts as a substantial meal, but I do.
Monster Munch always counts as a substantial meal, especially if you put it
a grab bag
in a bap.
In a bap? In a bap? Monster Munch bap?
Monster Munch sandwich.
Not a balm, just a bap.
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 Yeah.
Bap.
Northerners.
Okay. Yeah,
It's-
northern
it's-
bap.
it's-
Right.
It's a variation on the chicken Marengo. It's what Napoleon. If he
Crisp
didn't have the
button.
chicken, that's what Napoleon would have had for dinner that night.
Yeah,
Napoleon's
Monster
favourite
Munch in a
crisp flavour. Right. Okay.
Yeah. By the way,
Simon.
did you see the guy from the guy who runs the Reading War Games Club sent an email out.
emailed
They're
me.
having
Yeah.
a one-day competition in November.
I don't know how they're going to do it.
Well, I think you only get 10
Yeah.
people, so I imagine they've probably got all their places taken by now.
Well, we can't go because we're from Zone 2, so it's somewhat moot to us, isn't it? Really, you can't.
Is
actually-
Reading not in
allowed.
zone? Is Reading not in zone 2?
Not
No.
in Zone 2. It's still in Zone lowest or whatever it is.
Right.
So
Okay.
kind of complicated. All right.
Yeah.
So Simon, what about you? What's on your schedule for next week?
So I discovered in a box some more Renaissance figures. Oh dear. So
Oh dear, careless.
You've
What,
not
was
just
this a
got enough
box?
Renaissance figures for an army. You've got enough Renaissance figures to populate Germany.
On Monday.
Simon, was this a box that the postman brought to your door and rung the doorbell and said, "Here's that box that you ordered"?
not yet. They're coming. No, this is one of those random boxes that you as you're rummaging through, you go, "What's in this box? Oh look, 100 more Renaissance figures."
So, what unit could you possibly be missing from a Renaissance army that you don't already have?
Well, it's a question of, do I paint the 1636 German infantry or do I paint the 1637 with the extra tassels and the epaulettes? It's a big question to debate.
I just spray them all, and wash them, get them on the basis. That'll be
You mean
good.
they're not gold?
I think you're under the mistaken impression that we give a toss.
I'm debating whether to make a couple of very large tercios properly, fully stacked out, so as many infantry as I can get into a base, or I might open my extra box of 20mm plastic Chinese cavalry, because not that I don't have enough cavalry, but since Tim's gone for "I'll show you cavalry," I feel I need to compete with him. So if and whenever we could play in 20mm, both of us could basically bring the entire table of just cavalry.
You just want to horse around with them.
Yeah. Don't
Just
really
cavalry
get,
at
Yeah,
everything.
I'd give yourself a slap, please.
yeah, I don't want to
That
say
was
no.
Nay, lad.
Even by our low standards, that Peter, that was desperately poor. Desperately poor.
Oh,
Not
thank
even I
you,
would have
thank
tried
you.
that one.
I better hoof it.
Not even
Yes.
Simon Finney would have tried that one. I don't think.
No, probably not.
Right, who's in control of the Zoom meeting? Because they need to mute Peter now.
Yes, I think that could be the answer. Right. Okay.
Oh, dear.
So look, I think that's gone around the has that gone around the full window with what's coming up this week then. So I think all we've got now left to do is
I'm
look.
going to be painting Bavarians as well.
Painting
Yeah.
Bavarians.
Sent by Andy.
Okay.
Where did you
You're
get the
gonna do blue
painting
and
guide?
white
That should be
checks?
with you by the weekend.
Fantastic.
Blue and white checks. Good. So what we were talking about before we all came on air, is it on air if you're doing a podcast? On tape, on MP3, something like that, was looking at mixing up the format going forwards and alternating between a few different sort of more special focused events. So
Sorry, just before you go on, Tim,
Go
did
on,
you say
yep.
on tape, Grandad?
indeed, are you trying to recreate a classic Not the 9 o'clock news sketch?
Oh,
On the
yes.
gramophone.
Yeah.
Woofers and tweeters.
Peter,
What are woofers and tweeters?
well, you got
You got 'em,
whether
Grandad,
you
they're
want them
just
or not.
speaking.
Gramophone recording.
Slimline salad dressing, I think. You want slimline salad dressing, Grandad?
Back of the head.
Back of the head.
How many watts do you want?
many-
About average. Yeah.
No cheating.
No,
Wild,
cheating,
I
it's
was
all good.
furious. Another one, but even funnier.
Yes, that is another one as well. And then we'll have a vote on it, and the TUC will choose coffee. So enough of that. So for next week, the idea is that we will dig into a particular army, and which we will select at random through Simon Lee Mayer's computer machine to talk about. We'll pick an army as we've done in the past for a list, but everybody will bring an ADLG list along. And we'll have a
Then we'll
chat
argue
about
about
we'll argue about it. We'll have a chat about painting. We'll have a chat about figure selection in 15 and 25mm. We'll try and see if we're lucky. It might be something where some of us have played competitions with or against the army, and we'll just kind of dive deep into a particular army. But in that whole spirit of adventure and randomness, we will fire up. Simon, are you there with the magic? Have you managed to upload random.org? Are we ready to key this in?
Oh, the switch eagle.
It's all ready to go.
Here's the keyboard machine. Here's the keyboard, guys. And ding.
List 86.
86. What's 86? I know 86. What is it?
It's
Late
a Roman.
Oh, late Roman. Oh, it's a proper one. Oh, fantastic.
Roaming with the Romans.
That's a goodie. Okay, we're happy with that. So next week then will be a late Roman special. That's just after the square shields, isn't it? But before the really, really roundy ones where they're a bit rubbish.
I've still got square shields. I'll just use them.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. So
Well,
next
is
week
that
will be a
excuse
late-
so I
What
can-
do do for us?
That's an excuse for me to get some more figures then. If it's not the square shield ones, you'll have
Perfect.
to
Maybe
advise
we'll
me about
inspire
which
you
ones.
to buy some new figures.
Get
So
more.
next week will be a
You
late
paint them up
Roman
as
special.
Bavarians. They probably had some Bavarians in the late Roman army anyway.
They probably did. So next week will be a late Roman special. I think possibly at some point in the foreseeable future, we will end up continuing the Battle Empire special that we effectively did last week, about 60% of it, just through random chat as well. There might even be an Aechemenid Persian special at some point, even though we've started that by the sound of it. And I think in one final closing remarks, we've also, or I've actually been sent something free for the first time in 24 episodes of this. Someone has sent me something free, which clearly shows that someone is listening to this. And it's Martin from Vexillia, who's in the process of closing down his business. So that does slightly undermine the whole commercial benefit of free stuff. And he's sent a set of markers for disrupted markers and general in combat for use in ADLG to offer to someone who's a listener to the podcast. So I don't even get to keep the damn stuff myself, which is a bit shameful. So just to pose a question for any listeners who've actually managed to get to the end of the podcast and want to interact, the question of the day, and the answer is to email your answer to podcast@Madaxeman.com. And the question is, which branch of John Lewis is Dave Saunders' favourite haberdashery department in London found in? Which branches of John Lewis is Mr. Saunders' favourite haberdashery department found in? If you email that to me, we'll make a random draw next week, and wherever you are in the world, you will be posted a fantastic set of disrupted and general in combat markers from Vexillia. You can see them on their web store. I suspect they've got a few left that Martin's trying to shift, and he successfully will shift some next week, provided we get someone who actually answers and emails in. To
One thing I really
podcast@Madaxeman.com.
One thing I really like about this competition is before now, when you've looked at the figures for how many people listen to this podcast, and I did say people plural there, I remember asking you the question, have you got the figures for how many people listen to it till the end? And you've said, no, you can't tell that. So it'll be interesting to find out whether there is at least one person
exactly
to it all the way to the
not
end.
One of us 7 either. Really, that could be the challenge.
So that assumes Adam is actually listening to the end. He doesn't often do that,
even though he's here. But let's see how many people we get emailing in podcast@Madaxeman.com, which branch of John Lewis. And on that bombshell, we will leave you for another week. So goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, but we can make it a trick question, a difficult question, but you've got to use...
No, we don't want to make it a difficult question. We want to make it really easy. Then we find out if anybody's listening to this bloody thing.
John Lewis
I
is
very much
so
doubt.
mad.